Most musicians think that you need to sign a record deal to get your music in major brands like Nike, Coca-Cola, Starbucks, but that's a lie. And then this interview with Sonnet Simmons proves that you don't need a label, a massive fan base, or even millions of streams to make serious money with music. And Sonnet proves that all she needed was one sync deal that completely just changed her life. This interview is super inspiring. My name's Chris, also known as the artist Manifest. I have over 500,000 monthly listeners, and I have the privilege to sit down with Sonnet and dive into everything. So let's jump into this interview. All right, guys, welcome to today's episode. I get to interview the one and only Sonnet Simmons. You have heard her music in commercials and TV shows like Coca-Cola, Overstock.com, GoDaddy, Volkswagen, T-Mobile, Starbucks, and many, many more. And I get to interview her today and pick her brain about sync and TV film placements. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, it's so cool how you can run in similar circles and just meet people. And I guess you were on my email list, and I didn't even maybe know. And I can't remember how we
Yeah.
reached out or on the challenge or whatnot. But I checked out your profile, and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, we know different people and just connect. So I just love the networking, right?
Yeah, I've been following you for a while and love everything you put out there. And, I'm more on the sync side and on the really love everything you share about how to release your music and how to really show up for yourself as an indie artist, and take that ownership of your career. So
Yeah.
it's all gold.
No, awesome. Well, your all your credits are super inspiring, and I'd love it if you could share maybe with the audience of like maybe how you got started, some of the struggle before maybe you started getting these bigger placements, and just share a little bit would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I got started. It was just one of those. The first thing I landed was that Coca-Cola ad, and I didn't know anything about sync, and I didn't know anything about anything. And somebody had heard me sing another song on YouTube called Summertime, which they couldn't get the rights for. They couldn't get the clearance for. It was out of budget. They said, "Do you have anything else?" And I had just started my songwriting world. I was like, "Oh, well, I have this song. You're no good for me." And I recorded it onto my phone. And just as I was about to send it, I was like, what kind of ad is going to use "you're no good for me"? Something inside of me was like, that's not quite the right message. So I changed it to "you're so good for me,"
Wow.
recorded it on my voice message, like app on my phone,
Yeah.
sent it to the person. He was like, "This is great." They flew me in to like record the commercial. And then it was on a Coca-Cola commercial. It was like this, it turned into this big media blitz. And
Wow.
I was just like, I didn't know anything about anything at this
Yeah.
point. Super, super green. Didn't know how to repeat this process. I just was like, oh, I want somebody to discover me. Like I was waiting for people to come to me and say,
Right.
"You're great. Like here you go. Here's your award." And it took a number of years. I was on a reality television show. I didn't win. I was like devastated. I felt like, oh, I'm gonna give up on music.
Mm.
And this woman, Kathy Heller, sent me a message and she's like, "I'm doing a workshop on sync. Come and join me."
Yeah.
So I attended live and I was like, this is it. Like, I'm gonna absolutely like go all in on this because she was teaching what if I had taken the time back then with the Coca-Cola ad and figured out like how do I reverse engineer this and repeat this process, but instead I just was like, well, I'll just wait for somebody else to come along to me.
Right.
But
Right.
she really taught us how to reverse engineer the process. And
Yeah.
then I was like, I want to work for her. So I ended up showing up at her door every day with coffee until she hired me. And then I
That is
started
so
running
rad.
her licensing company and I started meeting the music supervisors and I started working with the producers that were doing things in the scene
Wow.
and really just like went all in. And that is because I was like, I am now going to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And you
How long ago
reverse
was that?
engineer the process. That was like 2016 or 2017 that I did that.
Okay. Okay, cool. Cool. That is so huge. And you said something earlier about how like the first vocal was a little negative. And I kind of come from the rap rock stuff and so kind of darker stuff. And when I've been going to sync, I keep getting challenged like, hey, that might not work for an ad. Can we make that more positive? Can you maybe talk about that? Because I'm sure you have lots to say on that and why it's important.
Yeah, and but I also think that it's changed a bit. I mean, for
Yeah.
ads, yes, because you are representing a brand and you're thinking
Yeah.
this brand really wants to jump out of the television or the screen, whoever's consuming this, and like connect. And we're not saying the brand is bad. So for commercials, yes, it usually has a positive, uplifting, we can get through this. Home
Yeah.
is a great place sort of vibe. I think for television, more it works to have more the gamut of emotions that you're sharing. But for
Right.
ads, you're representing that brand. So in
Yeah.
everything you do, even your socials, they're going to look at your socials and be like, "Oh, but like do we want this artist representing our brand?" And
Right. Right.
so you're looking at how can I be in partnership with this brand, and that's the
Yeah.
music you're creating.
Yeah. That's wow, you just nailed it. So like so some of these brands, like especially I guess the bigger it is, they're going to be checking out your profiles because like they want to make sure who they're associated with works. And if you got some sketchy stuff or you're, I don't know, if you're not posting or you don't have a presence, like I think it can either harm you or help you.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, so I've interviewed so many music supervisors, and I often ask that question, like, so what's the deal with socials? Because we're independent artists. Some of us don't have like millions of followers. How does this work? Will we not get the
Yeah.
spot? And the answer that I've repeatedly gotten is just have some sort of presence so they can understand who you are as an artist. They know you're
Yeah.
really creating music. You didn't just like create this one song. And if they're looking for millions of followers, then that's what they're looking for. You're not in competition for that, but
Yeah.
then go at least have some presence. Show us who you are. Give us some personality. You don't
Yeah.
have to be, giving up because you don't have a million followers.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So are you still working for that company now or you're out on your own? Do you want to maybe share what happened from then on?
Yeah, so I worked for that company for a number of years. It was called Catch the Moon Music and ran that licensing agency. It also was an education, sync education. Kathy turned it into some sync education as well
Right.
and taught some of those classes. My business partner really was like the educator on that end, and I was doing more of like the pitching. And she closed that company a couple years ago, and she just said, you have my blessing to create whatever you want, go for it.
Yeah.
And so we created Two Indie, which is more of a membership program where people can come in and learn about Sync and have opportunities to write to Sync. Um, we partner with a licensing agency every month. We have a sampler every month that's sent out to agencies, and most of that sampler gets signed. It's just like a program. So anyway, we created this as a place to help independent artists, similar to what you
Mhm.
do, like really take the reins of their career and
Mhm.
take ownership, and most of them are this is like they have another career and
Yeah.
music's always been on their heart. It's always been something they've wanted to do. And sync is a great way to have a family and have another career and still find purpose for your music and lots of people to hear it. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. I'm still an artist. And then I also work for a company doing business development on the ads side for a man named Simone Benyakar.
Okay.
And he's a composer in that's been great. So I'm pitching and still kind of like working on the licensing side of that. And I'm a mom of two little toddlers. So that's my
Yeah.
life. It's a lot.
Yes, you got it
I'm
busy. And
always like a little bit behind, but I really try to be on top of it.
I totally feel you. We have a day off today with my daughter, and we're gonna be hanging out and going out tomorrow. And guys, just so you know, I'm gonna put links to the event that she has where you can connect with Sonnet and her team with Two Signed and get your music get get signed and sync. It's an amazing event, and I'll share about that in a little bit. So what I think is really powerful is like, yeah, that really spoke to me is that you don't have to tour, and the monetary side can be really, really great with sync. Like as it's funny, I teach on Spotify and streams and whatnot. And obviously the reason I like that is because it's just constantly working forward and you once you've built it. But like, you get one sync, that's could be worth millions of streams compared just with one as opposed to having to get million of something. And do you want to maybe speak into that a little bit more in the touring thing? Because I definitely relate to that, not having to now that I have a daughter, not having to be away. Because I used to be on the road 150, 200 days a year, and this has been a like I literally feel like I'm living the dream. Like I get to go write with people, I get to talk to cool people like you, I get to go to different studios, and book my own hotels and be a little bit more in control, is what is my personal, fave about it. But anyways, I'm interviewing you. I want to hear what you have to say
No,
about
I
it.
mean, I love everything you share because it's so much about that mindset, you know? It's like, okay, so you're taking ownership and um that's what it is. Like I get so many emails that are, can you listen to my music? Or what can you do for me? What can you do for me? And when you start being like, how can I really take ownership of my career and what can I do for myself and showing up and every day keeping your mind like so clear and
Yeah.
you're just driven. So I really appreciate that about you and it's infectious, you know, you really bring that to your whole community.
Hmm.
And so I mean, I guess in terms of, yeah, so Sync is a great way to make money and it's a great way to share your music. I feel like um, people have all this music inside of them and they feel like nobody's ever going to hear it or, you know, my mom heard it or my grandma heard it, but like what about the world hearing it? And it's an amazing way to share it with the world on a big platform, on a big screen in a way that somebody can really digest what you have to say and you get paid for it. So in licensing, you're not selling your song, you get to license it. I mean, I've had a song licensed 10 times for 10 different ads and you
Yeah.
can you keep the rights to your song and they can just license it again and again, which is one of the, you know, when you're really creating music that is on a regular basis that an agency is representing. And the big thing is having those agents pitching it so you can
Yeah.
keep making the music.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if
I
that
love that. It's
answered your
over. And
question
yeah,
enough.
you keep the rights. And do you release all those songs on Spotify as well? So you get a bump in the streams, or sometimes you don't release them?
Well, this is why I found you because I've been really so right when I started having a lot of success with Sync, I also started having I had my first baby
Hmm.
and I just didn't bother releasing. You know, I've had all of these ads and I haven't released a lot of the songs. So I just started releasing like a year or two ago.
Okay.
And because, well, I had released music before that, but you know, like with more intention.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I missed out on a ton. I missed out
Mm,
on a ton because I didn't quite know what to do and I had a million things on my plate. And
right.
so when I was like, okay, got to figure out what is Manifest doing? So for my next releases and the next spots, like I can
Yeah.
figure out how to really take ownership of that rather than just being like, ah, I don't know, like it's too confusing
Yeah.
and opting out.
Yeah. And it's just another income stream, right? It's for when, if sync ever does slow down or whatnot. Like
A hundred
that's,
percent. I
yeah.
just downloaded Money the other day. I was like, this is so fun
Yeah.
from DistroKid.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah. So
downloaded, you
good.
know.
How do you, I'm curious your process. For me, I normally like just find tracks online, try to come up with some top lines, and then I'll send them to a producer to produce it out,
Oh,
and
cool.
reach out to them. And I'm sure, and if you could also kind of give me some advice for artists that want to get into this from the writer side and maybe the producer side of wanting to like, hey, how do I get into it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, my process, I have like maybe two different lanes. One is like I just write from my heart, sit down at the piano, write a song, then I figure out who do I want to produce it, and you know, here this is like from my heart to the world. And then the process of here's the brief, because I'm seeing a lot of these briefs on a regular basis. This is something that's coming up a lot. Maybe I could kind of do something like this, but mix it with something like this and make it my own. Like, how can I make this sound or this theme that's been coming up a lot, and how can I make it mine? Something
Can you
that
tell
I
people
would.
what a brief is? They may not
Oh
know what a
yeah.
brief is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, when say like a music supervisor is looking for a certain type of song for a television spot or an ad, they'll send out to licensing agencies a brief and they'll say, I'm looking for a song that sounds like this. This is the scene, this is the commercial. This is the vibe. If you have lyrics that, you know, sometimes it says with these kind of lyrical theme ideas, or it'll say, here's some references of artists that we want it to sound like. Or they can say the client really likes this track, but it doesn't build enough. Or, you know, we want only female vocals. So when you're seeing these kind of asks on a regular basis, you start seeing the trends, you start seeing or you can also just say, that sounds so exciting. I want to create something that sounds like that. And in our community, we have 6 briefs a month that people get to write to. So you also really are seeing, oh, well, what's working this year? What's working right now? This is stuff that agencies are looking to add to their roster, to their catalog.
Hmm.
So my other thing is I'll say, here's the brief. I'll make a playlist of songs that are references, like maybe 3 or 5 songs that are like, this is the vibe I want to go for. And then I'll pick a producer and I'll say, do you want to work on a song like this? This is the vibe. Here's a playlist of the sounds. They'll create the track, send it to me. I'll top line it, put all the harmonies, top line meaning the melody and the vocal, record those at home, and then send them the vocals, and then they'll do their magic of filling in the rest of the production and the mix and
Yeah.
the master.
Yeah.
And that's like the effective way, like the way that I target my music for
Yeah.
specific things.
I thought that was really good. It's like, yeah, okay, I want to write something like this because this is working, or I just want to be creative. And then once you have something, what you said there is I got to decide on the producer, because some producers might fit a certain style or genre. And it's like, and maybe, a certain producer will absolutely kill this. So you want to send it to them and be a bit more strategic. Do you find you're recording everything, or do you go into studio as well? Or are you able to just record everything at home?
Well, I love going into the studio because I love somebody on the other end saying that was great, or, do this again, some feedback. I
Yes,
don't
yes.
love recording vocals at home,
Mm.
but it has been a time saver. So I try to do both. When I
Yeah,
have the opportunity to pop into the studio, I will. But
yeah,
if when the house is quiet and I can get some vocals down and put some
yeah,
like harmonies in, throw them in and send them off, like that's
yeah,
really effective and efficient.
yeah. Engineering, I love it when someone else is engineering the vocals and coaching me through it, because like it's hard to know all the time. Obviously, you get good at it, but like, yeah, I don't love doing my own vocals. Like I'll do it, but it's like, it's, yeah, just for efficiency really. But like, yeah, yeah, I find like, I don't know. It's funny, before I even had the soundproof, one of my biggest songs has like 10 million streams on it. And I literally had like a bed sheet over my head recording the vocals. It was in another studio, and like, just on an SMB7 versus, a Manly or whatever in the studio. So like it really is the song, I think, at the end of the day, and not necessarily the equipment. Um, so what would you say are the biggest mistakes artists make when trying to get into sync?
Um, I think, well, we touched on it, just thinking that somebody else is going to do it for you
Mm-hmm.
still requires work and showing up and doing your research,
Mm-hmm.
understanding who the agencies are, what do they need, and is my
Yeah.
music like good enough? So,
Yeah.
do I need to hone that in a little bit? Who do I need to work with?
Yeah.
Um, and listening. Like there's playlists on Spotify for different television shows. There's for different ads. Every brand has a
Mm.
different kind of sonic sound, and you can listen on YouTube. TuneFind is a great place to research like what's being used. If I
Mhm.
make like dusty, grungy sort of country music, like where is that being placed? What shows might
Yeah.
be using that? And you can research that. You can make a playlist. You can listen to it. You're like, oh, well, they're really not talking about like these kind of themes. How can I shift up my themes?
Yeah.
So just get educated. There's so many educational platforms out there to learn like what works, what doesn't, get song feedback.
Yeah.
Um, but I think like once you take ownership of I'm gonna figure this out and I can do this and I'm not gonna wait for somebody else to come to me and like I just can't tell you. I'm sure you get the same thing. Like, here's my music. Thank me later. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do with that. Like, that's
Yeah.
not helpful,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that it's really like taking that ownership.
Yeah. Yeah. And really doing the research, and like, it's kind of like, even when people are submitting to Spotify playlists or whatnot, it's like, dude, did you listen to my playlist? Like it doesn't sound like that. And, I mean,
Right.
I'm not a mean person, but like, like, did you listen? Like, does your song really, not only does it match, but does it match the quality? And I think that it's fine where you start, because it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. But like it's like, okay, like if my music isn't here, let's fix it. Let's bring it to that. Like who produced the one that you like? Reach out to them, and sometimes you gotta pay to get in the rooms or pay to hire to get the music quality to that level because like it's pretty high competition in this game. And like I don't know, I like to think like, if you want to play, you gotta raise the bar on that. Tell people more about this awesome event that you have coming up for Get Signed to Sync, because I am
Yeah.
really excited to attend this myself.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest pieces as an independent artist is creating great music and then having somebody represent it or a few people represent it. And those are the sync agencies. Those are the people that day in and day out, they're making sure they have really strong connections to the music supervisors and the ad agencies. And that's a full-time job to really know what are people working on and how do I stay in their world of reference and on their radar. So somebody who represents your music, say they sign 5 of your songs and they're a licensing agency, they are the ones that are getting those briefs from all of their contacts. I need a song like this for an ad. I need a song like this for this television show. I need a bunch of songs for this upcoming reality show, or whatever it might be. So you want your songs represented by these agencies. And I think the disconnect is like, how do I get in with those agencies? How do I get my music in front of them? Because they're busy doing a lot of other things.
Mhm.
So this conference, it's a 2-day online virtual conference you can attend from anywhere in the world. And we bring in 25 licensing agencies from the big ones to the small ones, small like boutique ones, and to learn what are they looking for? How do their deals work? Are they exclusive? Are they non-exclusive? What kind of things do they work on? How do they like music being submitted to them? And then everybody who attends has the opportunity to submit a song for feedback. It's not guaranteed that you get listened to, but for the most part, we get through all the songs. It's 8 hours of feedback over the 2 days. And so you also get an hour from every panel. You're going to hear song feedback from the songs that the attendees are submitting. So you get to hear like, what do they think of this song? What do they think of other people's songs? Like, well, that song kind of sounds like what I do. And then in the back channels, you're like, I love that song. I want to work with that vocalist. I want to work with that producer. So everybody on this Zoom, you're connecting to, and you're like, I want to work with you. You want to work on something like this. You hear
Yeah.
about trends. You start, so that's how the general admission works. And then there's a VIP day where you get to actually pitch your music directly. You get 8 minutes to present your music and pitch it to a panel of 3 licensing agencies. And that's the VIP option.
That's awesome. And I'll put the link
Yeah,
below. If they use the code Chris, I think they get 10% off, right?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, awesome. Chris, Chris. And so that is awesome. Like, just being in that room, getting to hear other people. Like maybe you're watching this and you don't want to submit your music, but like, yeah, if someone plays a song that's similar to yours and you hear the feedback, you can like almost get feedback on your style and know what they're looking for, know what they're not looking for. And like for me as an artist, like I'm always like I'm listening to both, but like I look for dope producers. I'm like, okay, his sound design or her sound design is sick, and I'm like, okay, I want to work with them. DM, heard you on here, reach out, right? Or an artist, like, oh my gosh, you sound great. Are you down to collab? Like, I just feel like that is invaluable, and like the introduction, they're literally getting an introduction to like 20 plus people, and like how powerful is that to say, hey, I heard you on Sonnet Simmons, how to get signed to sync, and check out this song kind of thing, right? Like it really opens the door, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't even share how many people this is making. This is our 4th year doing it. It used to be called Get Repped. We changed it to Get Signed and Sync this year.
Yeah.
And people have signed their entire catalogs. People will say, this is how I got my start in sync. This is where like really like the jumping point for me. This is how I signed this song. I signed that song. I got in with this agency. Then they got me this placement. Like you really get to dive in.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. And as an independent artist, this is where I create things that I'm like, what do I need? What do I need in order to have that community, to have that container, to have the accountability, and to have the access to people? So that's really where it's born from,
Yeah.
conference.
And could you explain also just the difference between exclusive versus non-exclusive?
Yeah. So licensing agencies, when they represent your music, they sign it. They can sign it non-exclusively, which means you can sign that exact song to another non-exclusive licensing agency. So two or three agencies can be pitching the same song. Theoretically more, but I just would never recommend that you send that song out to everybody. I would say, pick two agencies if they're non-exclusive to represent that song so that a music supervisor isn't getting that song from 10 different agencies and not
Yeah.
sure who to clear it with.
Yeah.
Then on the other side, exclusive, which means that song is represented by that agency exclusively, only that agency. A music supervisor can only go to that agent for that song.
Yeah. And I think it's important to know like it's not forever either. Like these are
Right.
normally year contracts and they auto renew unless you email them and say, "Hey, I actually want to take it somewhere." It's not like it's different than signing to like a record label in perpetuity,
Right. Oh my gosh, what a good point to make.
right? Like it's not forever because like I think a lot of there's just so many horror stories. I'm very thankful that I've avoided majority of those horror stories, but they do happen where, and I think it freaks artists out that, they're signing away something, but like, again, your work that's why you want to go with people that you trust and obviously, with your track record and my track record and we're sharing this information, we're bringing you trusted sources here. But at the end of the day, always vet things out, always get things looked at. But I find there's a lot more good people in this industry than the few sour apples that ruin it.
Yeah, I get behind that statement for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, hey, thank you so much, guys. I'll put the links below. Use the code Chris. Go. I'm going. I'm listening because I want to keep learning and I want to get more of my songs synced, whether it's exclusive or non exclusive. So thank you so much for spending the time with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so great.